finally by like January, I'm like, nobody's coming out. I'm looking for, I won't name names, but you all know who the people are that we would expect to come out. I said, I'm going to do this. My family said, you're crazy. I said, it has to be done, otherwise we're going nowhere. Someone said a stepping stone. A stepping stone, this is, to say you're the mayor of this Penn Hills right now, really would not be, it would be a stepping stone to nowhere. The next logical place would be the State House. I certainly can't make that commitment, that's not even open. Right now, we have to take care of these 4 years. If I'm mayor, I promise that in the next 4 years, I am going to do everything so that this region, this state, the entire world, and I'm not exaggerating, will know about Penn Hills. Now is the time, there's no other time, now is it.
Thank you, Pauline. Right on time. The next question is more or less an amalgam of many questions we got. And we're really sort of starting with some of the easier questions, to be honest. I will say we're going to delve into some of the things that you both already mentioned in your statements. But this question really, it comes, probably the best phraseology of it was from Faith Milazzo from the Anti-Litter Group on Facebook. And she really did want to talk about what is Penn Hills' greatest asset? How do you plan to tout that? And she also mentioned drawbacks, but I'm actually going to let another person finish the question, because you know there are always profit and deficits in everything, good and bad, and Jim is going to finish this question off.
Okay, so since both of you just took a moment to give a little personal background and explanation, I'm going to do the same. I'm a middle-aged, middle-class, professionally employed 20-year resident of Penn Hills, owning my own home. I'm not reliant upon publicly funded support in any way. I give back to the community in multiple ways through multiple organizations that include both my time and my money, and I've done so for 10 plus years. I will for sure be paying more in taxes in the upcoming years, but I'm also not likely to see the flush of amenities coming to my town like other Pittsburgh towns are seeing. Make me stay.
Oh, Paulene, thank you.
If you leave, Jim, you are about to leave the greatest expose that's about to hit, if I'm mayor, that's about to hit the world, because Penn Hills is awesome. And I can get that done. As the endorsed candidate, that means that I have access to county, state, and federal officials. And I intend to knock on the door and say, guess what? Penn Hills is the largest municipality outside of Pittsburgh. We put you in office and you cannot forget us. We need to have influx of that money. If you leave, Jim, you're going to be leaving the place that I think it answers the same question. What makes us so great? Location, 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 and our beautiful geography. How many of us in this room have had guests in our home, and they come to our house and they say, oh my gosh, I had no idea that Penn Hills was this beautiful. Penn Hills, we are on the brink of a really, we're going to open, if I'm mayor, we're going to open up our gateways. We're going to be a destination, not just going to be a throughway. So I do hope you'll stay, because we're on the brink of something really, really big.
Thank you, Pauline. John?
Well, Jim, I've been here for 58 years, and to leave would be, right now would be a good idea, because there's a lot of changes coming down the pipe. Okay? We have the economic development team that I put together, Jace Ranson, Tyler Tomasino, Kathleen Sutton. We have a well-diverse group of people that are going out and they're looking for ideas to make differences in Penn Hills. They've got with the Orton Foundation, okay, they're going to bring back some of the ideas that were in Indiana and bring it back to Penn Hills. And they made this Orton Foundation, I believe it was funded by Elsie Hillman. Am I correct, Jace?
Foundation is a foundation out of
Vermont, okay. So all these ideas that the economic development team's bringing in, we're going to place it towards Penn Hills, and we're going to bring the same ideas that they did for Indiana, and we're going to make it a lot better than it is right today, and turn it around, as my opponent said. Another thing that's going on is we're doing an analysis on this sewage. Okay, those are some of the things that are happening in this community is the sewage problem too. And that's, when you talk to people, they want to move out because of it. We're doing an analysis. We started it at my request in January. It's come through. We got a $5 reduction. We're still going to go with the Gateway Engineering is going to show us this whole beginning and end of it, and we're going to find out what it's going to take to fix this problem that we have. I'm not going to give up on anything in Penn Hills. I'm too vested in this community to give up on it. And I think we got a lot of good people behind me helping me out with this. Like I said, with the economic development team, we got a really great manager now. Penn Hills is turning. It's turning. It's not the same way I came in as a 16. And we've got an open seat here with 2 more council people that are going to be taking place. Hey, it's on the verge. It's on the verge of turning right now.
Thank you, John. The next question is probably a quicker answer. The question's a little long, but it's a quick answer, and it's an important question. It comes from Adeshwa Metzger, and the question, word for word, is, do you have any conflicts of interest in the pursuit of this position? For example, would a family member receive a financial benefit from your being mayor, such as receiving municipal contracts? Yes.
No. How's that? No. I have no personal agenda on anything. I mean, I'm retired. I have all the time in the world. I'm doing this for the betterment of the community. That's it. My family is all work. Okay?
Okay. Paulene?
No, I have no conflict of interest, but I certainly have a personal agenda. I hope that my house is worth $7 million by the time my kids are 80.
All right, so no conflicts of interest in the foreseeable future. Very well. I think that gratifies all of us. The next couple questions do have to do with infrastructure. You know, this country has crumbling infrastructure everywhere. A lot of people in Pittsburgh think it's a problem we have just here. But the Great Lakes areas, all the Rust Belt areas, are under tremendous infrastructure debility issues. So we're not in it alone. Really, a lot of this needs to be solved at the federal level. However, we have 2 questions about particular infrastructure issues in Penn Hills. And the first one I'm going to bring Kathy Kochka back up to ask, if she's willing. Thank you. And Pauline will be the first answer.
Okay, like Jim, I have actually 7 years on him. I moved into Penn Hills into Frankstown Estates, which is at least as beautiful as Crescent Hills.
That's right.
We love our little community. And I moved on to Gardenia Drive, nice wide street, no telephone lines, they were behind the house, beautiful. I was very attracted to that house because of that. It hasn't been paved in about 25 years. And the street's cracking. I call about 13 times every summer to try to get them patched. One year, a woman was actually in the middle of our neighborhood yard sale, was walking across, just finished cancer treatment, was walking across the street and fell in one of those holes, and they took her to the hospital. I'm not kidding. So I feel very strongly about roads, and we are under budgeted for roads. Now, we did just get some money, but it's not going to cover all those roads. I want to know what you're going to do about the roads in Penn Hills.
What I would do is I would talk to the administration. The mayor doesn't really have the ability to say, look, I'm going to pull this, that, and the other thing. There are highly paid professionals that look at these, they do the studies and they take care of everything. The bigger question, right now I'm in your shoes. I'm a resident just like you are. My question is, John, it's been 2 years. What have you done? We've had 2 years. Really, we haven't seen anything. I'm in the same boat as you are. I walk around my neighborhood, I see people like that, we see these roads. If we can't get it done locally, then we need to have an influx of help from other areas.
Thank you, Pauline. John?
Okay, how it's done. The $3 million that just came in is going to be, there's a lot of roads in Penn Hills are going to be paved. If yours is as bad as they say, it's probably going to get paved. Because what they do is the manager and Scott Shepard drive around and they start a list. And the list goes from the worst to the least. Okay? That's how they do our paving. And if yours is as bad as they say, and there's potholes and you've got some serious problems, yours will be first on the list. That $3 million is to cover all the paving plus the extra money we have in Talked to the manager just recently about it, and most of the roads in Penn Hills are gonna get paved.
All right, I actually do have a follow-up, but it wouldn't be fair to ask somebody who is in the administration at this point and someone who is not. But we'll all pray for better roads. Thank you. The second infrastructure question has been alluded to already, and it is the question of what is going on with our sewers and sewage and prices. Now, Mayor Kuhn has her very own, very special sewer speech that she has given at pretty much every, it's one of her greatest hits. She's given it at almost every council meeting I've ever attended. What is your take on our prospects for seeing improvements in the sewer, safety in the sewer, and getting over this hump in sewer costs? John, you'll be first.
Okay, the first thing about the sewer analysis, and I'm going to go back to it, is one of my topics, okay? The sewers, the analysis was done in January. We just got some of the information that the fund balance is now, and for you that don't know what the fund balance is, it's an EPA, DEP mandated amount of money that we have to keep. Now that fund balance was down in 2014 to 600,000. It's now 4.5 million. So that's why you got the $5 reduction, because during the analysis they discovered this. Now, what we need to do is we need to find out how many sewers that we've fixed, how much it costs us, and how much more it's going to cost us to fix the rest of the sewers, and when they're going to be done. That is the way we're going to find out how much is left on our own to pay for. Now, Alcosan wants to come in and do regionalization. Regionalization is only good if Alcosan can tell us how much per household this is going to cost, and they can't. I've gone to several meetings with them. I've talked to people. Been doing this since I got on in 2017. Nobody can give us a cost for regionalization. The only thing else we could do if we don't get a cost for regionalization, and I want you to know something. As taxpayers, you all paid $100 million into your infrastructure and your sewage system when the EPA and DEP came in the 80s. Okay? That's down to $64 million right now. I know that seems like a lot, but you paid it down to the $9.58 you've been paying monthly over 1,000 gallons, every 1,000 gallons. So we pay Alcosan $5 million a year to treat our sewage. Sandy Creek Road would take $11 million to get that thing up and running again. So what we do is we take the money, and in 2.5 years we pay for that sewage plant to be redone. So that would be my idea, to get our own sewage, filtrate our own sewage, and say to heck with Alcosan. We don't need them. And turn the valve down on Sandy Creek Road and pump it directly back into the river where we have it. The plant up in Penn Hills Park is doing 30% right now, so we don't need that much more.
Thank you, John. Paulene?
This is a prime example of the differences between John and me. John wants to bring everything in here into Penn Hills, keep it in-house. I think that would be a huge mistake. The economies of scale would really tell us that we should be uniting with other places. We should have Wilkinsburg, we should have Edgewood, we should have everybody that we can. It would be unwieldy. It would just be impossible for us to keep this in-house, so to speak. The economies of scale just doesn't work that way. I'm looking at today's Penn Hills progress. That $5 reduction, with all due respect, I find it rather insulting. $5 isn't going to really make or break any of us. But it's really scarier than that. It's really, really frightening when you look at that. The progress today reported, and let me read this word for word, it says here that the manager said that the decrease amounts to nearly $350,000 per year not being collected to the municipality. That's over $250,000 a year. That surplus is our savings account. This means if you look at your household budget, what we just said was, we're going to go back to living paycheck to paycheck instead of having a little bit of money in savings. This money that we have in the quote-unquote surplus is because what's coming down the pike. We're going to need that money. They require that we put that money aside because we're going to have to maintain, you need that money for the future. This is like saying, oh look, we're going to stop putting money into the retirement fund because we don't need it right now. And it doesn't affect us today. That's true, it does not affect us today, but it's going to affect us in the future. This is the most frightening thing that I think is here to hit Penn Hills. If we continue at a $5 reduction rate per year, and we're promised this is just the beginning, it's going to get even bigger, which means at this rate in 4 years, that fund will be bankrupt. That fund will be bankrupt at this rate. With all due respect, that's not a good idea at all. It's dangerous.
Thank you. The next set of questions have to do with what I would call a climate of seemingly purposeful corporate disinvestment in Penn Hills. And to start this little section off, I'm going to ask Jim Beck to come up. And Karen, would you come to the mic soon? Thank you.
Thank you. My question has to do with the notion of main streets. And many other first-ring boroughs or suburbs around Pittsburgh, like Millville or Sharpsburg, have fueled their own town's revitalization and renaissance efforts by focusing on their main street, generally a conglomeration of separate, privately owned buildings. Given that Penn Hills lacks a traditional main street concept, and the fact that most of the shopping centers have a single owner, how would you position Penn Hills for an equally successful renaissance effort?
Yes. First of all, let me say I'm not some egomaniac that thinks I have all the answers. So the first thing I would do is to work with other people. I would speak with not only the residents, but I would go beyond our community. I would go out to other mayors and say, look, you know, the best thing to do is to learn from your mistakes, but it's even better to learn from others' mistakes. You know, no crime has ever occurred in the city of Pittsburgh. My entire adult life, I can't remember reading anything where there's been crime in the city of Pittsburgh. There's crime in Shadyside, Garfield, Bloomfield, North Side, those ones. People view Penn Hills as one big, giant neighborhood. We are not. We're a municipality. We do have neighborhoods. We can't necessarily have Main Street, but what we can do is make each neighborhood have their own characteristic. So we need to, first of all, have an identity. I love that Kathy thinks her neighborhood's better. I want to have neighborhood wars. Mine's better than yours. No, mine's better than yours. And keep making it that way. So what I would do is I would try to work with the folks in here and talk to other communities and talk with them. And, you know, we need to have our own unique identities.
Thank you. John, your take?
Well, I think the economic development team bringing the ideas in from the Thornton Foundation is just what we're talking about. They did a lot for Indiana, and I'm sure once the team brings back some of the ideas and implements it into Penn Hills, it'll work. I mean, we don't have a main street.
But that town did though, it worked.
Yeah, they did. In Indiana, they did. But I believe some of the ideas that they're going to bring back will work. And we'll just have to wait and see what Jace and Thomas Wallace and Kathy Sutton and the rest of the team bring back, and see if we can implement some of those ideas. And reaching out to the public is one of their big ideas. They reach out to the public and they get public input. And I think every time you do something like this, Jim, you need public input on it. And she said, we're going to have to just specialize it in each community. Then each community will be something that we'll have to look into. Right?
Thank you.
Felix, excuse me, I'd like to retract. I would like to have that fan on. These are really hot.
Howard, can you help Paulene out? Thank you.
All right. Let's get up there.
Hi, Kristen.
Hi, good afternoon, candidates. I'm Karen Lance from Crescent Hills. Thank you for being here. My question also concerns economic development. I think in this community, as we all know, we have so many vacant buildings, so many vacant structures that we need businesses to come in. It's reported that there are federal, state, and county resource funds for economic development that we could possibly have implemented in our area. This would help developers, it would help builders, it would help the homeowners, that we would have, the more development we get in the community, the higher our home sales could be. We need realtors in our community. Most of the realtors have left Penn Hills. We need the realtors to come back. what would be your plan of action to access funding from these agencies? And how can we bring the realtors, how can we bring new homeowners back into the community? That's the first part of my question. The second part of my question would be, would you find it beneficial to hire a professional marketing company as they did in Detroit, Michigan? They brought professional people in, did a marketing study, and they ran with it. And from what I understand, it's quite successful. And I'm sorry, but I have a third quick question. I'm sorry, it's very quick. How can we get the municipal building sold? Thank you.
Thanks for John's part. And we'll give you some extra time, John. Since Karen, you
Thanks,
stay
Karen.
here. We're going to let Karen manage the mic. She needs to direct you a little.
That's okay, Karen, thank you. The first part of that question, if I remember correctly, is the federal money that you want to come in, where are we going to put it? Well,
How do we get it?
how do we get it? So we got to go out to our leaders. I brought in, last in 17, I brought Mr. Fitzgerald up to, and his economic development team. I brought them up to the Atlas Cement plant, the U.S. Steel plant, and Gascola Slide plant, okay? Those were kind of the key areas that I would like to see. We have all this vacant land, okay? Now, also incorporate that, let's do the learner and the tax abatement program, which we're going to stretch out to those areas. So now, if we can get them back up here again, when initially we didn't have the tax in the learner, tax abatement and learner program. If we can get them back up here again, the economic development team with the county, and help us, like I wanted them to before, maybe when they see that we're going that mile and we're giving them that tax abatement and that learner program, we're wanting builders to come in, we want people in our community, that should help just in itself. Now, the second part of your question was?
Well, the second part of my question was your plan of action, which you were talking about already.
Right.
Your plan of action.
Right, right.
Which you've explained. And my last question was, what would be a great idea for the municipal building, and how do we get it sold?
Well, the municipal building itself, right now, we basically take anything for it, just to get it back on the tax rolls again, honestly. I mean, that would be a prime spot for an apartment building, and because it has a shooting range in the basement of it, to market that building to somebody that is involved in that kind of a sport, okay, would be, I mean, they'd flock to that building. But you need a developer to actually come into that building and say, hey, look, it's got a range in the basement. I mean, we've already talked about those incubator, and you know, we've talked about that, little incubators in there where the small businesses come in. But we do need somebody in Penn Hills marketing the items that we have. And I've always said we get so much bad publicity from the Tribune and everybody else that if we had somebody like Carrie Del Proso, all right, which she's a PR person, she's trying to work with us now to get some positive publicity. We do have Carrie Del Rosa
So
doing.
you already do have
Yes, we do
a
have.
professional marketer.
We do have somebody like that, and she's going to try to market some of our good things in Penn Hills and not let people just hear the bad.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Paulene?
The first question was about the how to get the money. You know, again, with all due respect, you have to close the deal. John, you've had 2 years, you've had folks here, and the deal hasn't been closed. We keep saying what's going to happen, what's going to happen. The opportunity's been there, it hasn't been seized. What I would do is I'm going to pick up the phone, I have Rich Fitzgerald's telephone number in my cell phone, say we need to meet, talk to Connor Lamb, have a face-to-face meeting with these folks. In terms of, you know, we have a marketer. Well, it's not working. It's been 2 years. We need to see results. It's time to stop talking. It's time to stop talking and get it done. We are at that fork in the road. If this marketer isn't working, we need to move on to someone else. I talk to people like Leon, and you know, they have good ideas. I'm not going to steal their ideas. I'm going to give them credit for their ideas. And some things are, you know, we talk about the tax abatement. Well, do it. Let's not just talk about it. It should have and could have been done over the last 2 years. It should have gotten done. You know, and something that may not sound popular, we may have to do things like, maybe, and this is not my idea, I've heard other people say this, we may have to give the municipal building away and let that person, you know, give them that incentive. We have to work with the county urban redevelopment authority. all those things. It's not a matter of, oh, this can't happen. No, this should happen. It should be happening by now. We have the technology. Pick up the phone and get a face-to-face meeting. We need to get it done. Thank you, Paulene.
Thanks to both of you. Thanks, Karen. Karen, will you take your question? Thank you.
Do you want to
That's
hold
okay.
this for a minute?
I have a very
My
messy desk.
arms
Everybody
are
knows
falling
me,
off.
and, I'm a little messy. Thank you so much.
Wish I could see where my battery is.
The next question came in from various people, and I believe Pauline will address it first.
People are watching that, that's live.
It's the thing you can't talk about at a council meeting, and it is the school district. It can be a thorny issue if you try. So one of the questions came in from Faith, and the other one from Adeshwa, and together they sound something like this. Do you have any plans to work with the school district or school board? Why or why not? And are you familiar with or are you following the results of the recovery effort? Thank you.
First of all, let me clarify something. There's something that's very popular that supporters of John are. They love to say that I was on the school board during that $170 million issue. I absolutely was not, and anybody that would continue with that, they either cannot read or they haven't taken the time to read, or worse, they have read, but they want to perpetuate this falsehood. I'm holding before me right now I have right here the grand jury report, and I'm reading from page 22. And it says, the resolution authorizing the issuance of the bond not to exceed $140 million to fund the projects were unanimously passed with Margie Crow, Donald Kuhn, Kathy Mowry, Barry Patterson, Aaron Vecchio, John Zakia, Joseph Bailey, Carolyn Fagioli, and Robert Hudak, all voting in the affirmative, unanimously. So that should clear it up right here, and if anybody needs a copy of it, I've got it right here. I got on that school board because I got on because of the mess. I said, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and get something done. It's the same reason why I'm running for mayor. I love Penn Hills. I wasn't going to move to Penn Hills. My mother-in-law saw Penn Hills on I was living in the North Hills. She said, I saw this house on Showcase of Homes. I said, look, I'll go look at it. I said to my husband, I'll go look at it so I can say, I saw it, it's not going to work out.
That's what we did.
I fell in love with it. It was over 20 years ago. I love my home, I love my neighbors, I love my neighborhood, I love my municipality. I love all these people that you come out, you could be doing anything else tonight, but you are here. And that's why I did that. At the last school board, at the last municipal meeting, that woman was not permitted to speak, Sarah Snatchko. I said, would you as a body, I got up and I said, would you, council and mayor, would you write a letter to the Department of Education as a body saying that we support the school, we are unified. Because you know what, as the school district goes, so goes the municipality. And here's a direct quote. I'm looking at the Penn Hills Progress, and this is dated March 28th, 2019. And John said, Councilman John Petrucci said, Snatchco's comments had nothing to do with the municipality. That's frightening, folks. The school district has everything to do with the municipality. So yes, I absolutely will work with the school district.
John, you okay?
Well, to get back on track, what would I do with the school district? I would work with them in any way possible. Okay? That's why I'm a liaison for the school district now. Anything that they would need from the municipality, I would work with.
Can I ask a quick follow-up there? Is that an official position
Yes,
for council?
Sarah Kuhn may be
Thank you.
liaison in 2017.
Thank you.
I go to the meetings, I sit there and I listen to what they have to say, and basically report back to the municipality what's going on in the school. So I'm kind of in tune with what they're doing, all right? As far as what I said at that meeting that night, okay, was taken kind of out of text on that. The gentleman that was taking the information asked me a question. I said it had nothing to do with the municipality because it was done with the grand jury investigation. They left that part out. That has That, I believe that, yes, if the school district goes, yeah, you don't have a municipality, you're right. Okay, one hand goes versus the other. But that article was taken way out of text for myself and Deputy Mayor Kathy Southwick. Both of us were taken out of text. We said a lot of things that night, and those are the things that he picked up on, and that was bad press that night, and that's how he sold it, and that's how he spun it. So that was basically my answer.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, Howard has a question for you. Now, we have a member of the garden club that we saw earlier today. Her name is Sarah Sachs, and she's a psychic. So you both must be psychics. Here's Howard Davidson.
Felix is laughing because the question I had at hand, you've been talking about indirectly for the last minute and a half. It was a very contentious council meeting, and I wasn't there. I saw it on Facebook. Facebook is all the people that don't have Facebook. I wish our council meetings were on Facebook. I wish they all were, or at least televised. But my question is, I'm familiar with the policy, as you know. I work for the municipality. You write a letter way in advance. Some say 2 weeks, some say 10 days. You get yourself scheduled. This woman did that. She went up to the microphone thinking that she was entitled to 5 minutes, but she was not given her 5 minutes. Now let's say, I'm going to rephrase my question, let's say it had nothing to do with the school board. Let's say it had nothing to do with the solicitor. Let's say she was asking a question, or she was about to make a speech which you knew was going to criticize either yourself or another council member. If you were mayor, how would you handle that situation?
Good question.
That's for John.
Well, I prepared a statement because I knew that was going to be one of the questions. The charter was adopted in 1973 and has only had minor changes. I believe it's outdated. The structure of the meetings need to be changed to fit the needs of the community today. I proposed changes back in 2017 to all the charter, but it fell on deaf ears. The council procedures should provide an environment to which citizens feel they can make their views known to council and have the opportunity to review and comment on policy matters. Article 4 on page 19 of the charter explains how meetings should be run. Section 9, citizens should be heard, should be strictly enforced. That is my opinion about that. If you're going to defame or criticize somebody on the panel, I wouldn't let it. I mean, we have to be a little bit more professional about it. If you want to step out in the hall and have a conversation with the council person, you're more than welcome, okay? But to actually start to defame somebody up on stage, I think that's crossing the line. I think what happens too, folks, is we don't have any policy set in place for those meetings. There's no policy. We go by the home rule charter, and the charter says that we can set policy, but there was no policy ever set. I think even far as back as Mary Rose Days was on council. Do you ever remember any policies that were ever set about that meeting? There's no policies up there at all. That's why I'm implementing policies one right after the other, because there is none. Okay, and there has to be, just like Monroeville, Oakmont, Verona, they all have policies regarding their meetings. What you can say as far as defaming a council person, their policies say no also. How much time you spend up at that mic, they have policies that dictate that. We have no policies about that. So I think what we should do is we should take some information, some input from some other communities on how they're doing theirs, and put together with ours, and design some kind of policy for our meeting instead of flying by the seat of our ass. I mean, that's basically what we're doing every meeting. And yeah, you've seen the meetings and you've seen how bad they get. It's to and fro. It's to and fro.
So, to clarify, the last bit of Howard's question was, how would you have handled that situation? So you would not have handled it much differently than Sarah did.
Oh yeah, I would handle it a lot different than Sarah did. That was completely.
I'll give you another minute.
That was
second
completely.
to clarify that.
That was completely out of line. completely.
Okay,
Whether at that particular moment, she should have been able to speak.
all right. All right, thank you. Pauline, your take on this?
I was at that meeting, and I think even Mary Rose Davis remembers something called the United States Constitution. At that meeting, I also pointed out, and I just have, as you can see from what we talked about in the beginning, I was on the faculty at Carlo, and I teach at CCAC. I teach American government and U.S. Constitution. I will say here tonight what I said that night. Freedom of speech is not absolute. It can be regulated as to time, place, and manner. But you know, talk is cheap. You can say what you would do or what you would do in the future. But I was there that night, and two things happened. Number one, after that woman was not permitted to speak, and she did follow what we all understood the policy to be, you put your letter in writing ahead of time. She was cut off repeatedly. And then Mayor Coons said, does anyone here want to let her speak? And I'd like to quote Councilman Petrucci. He said, nothing. He sat there in absolute silence. And silence is affirmation. You can go back and read the transcript. I have a copy of it if anybody wants it. And then, so, you know, the Constitution, this is the place. We do not need a policy where you say you cannot criticize people. We need open and uninhibited debate. It's not about offending anyone. If we were worried about offending people, the Civil Rights Act would never have passed. But another thing happened that night. After they went on to talk about the school, that issue when they didn't talk about it, I stood up and I said, I have a question. And the mayor said, oh, Pauline has a question. Is it okay if she talks? And then they let me speak. I was the recipient, the beneficiary of something that happens here in Penn Hills. Because I am involved in this and because I'm politically active, they let me speak. They didn't let the person who wasn't politically active speak, but because I'm politically active, they let me speak. I assure you, if I'm the mayor, we will follow the United States Constitution, and everybody will speak no matter how offensive it is, and we will have open and uninhibited debate for our benefit.
Thank you, Pauline, and thank you, John, for your clarification. The next little bit we want to talk about is litter and dumping. We seem to have a proliferation of litter and dumping. And, you know, dumping is a really intentional malfeasance that affects our community. They can be handled differently, and I'd like to hear about some of your plans for litter and dumping. Pauline, will you begin?
Sure, absolutely. You know, I think we need to treat litter for what it is. It is a violation of the law. It should be enforced to the fullest extent of the law. I am flattered and honored that John has finally, he agrees with me. I said we need to get cameras. We can do this. You go on the turnpike, if you know they take your license plate, we absolutely can and should enforce that. I love Faith Milazzo and I love litter pickup, it's great. However, right now the message is if you come to Penn Hills and you litter, we're picking it up. I want the message to be, if you come to Penn Hills and you litter, we are fining you to the fullest extent of the law, and we are not kidding. I want it to be known everywhere you go. They are crazy in Penn Hills. You cannot throw a thing out the window because you will get it. You know, absolutely, and we can get, you know, this is a federal, this is a health issue. There are federal, state, and county, there are funds available for this. Let's go get it. Let's just stop talking about it, and let's do it. But you have to look at the bigger picture. This is both it's a problem, but it's also a symptom. It's a symptom of things like, go to Mount Lebanon, go to Fox Chapel. They don't throw stuff out, right? We need to tell our landlords, you know what? You need to care for your property. The tenants are saying, if you don't care for it, why should I? We need to say we're very serious about this. We don't need new laws and ordinance on the books. We don't. We need to enforce what we have.
John, I'd like you to address litter, and then I'm going to come back to both of you with particular emphasis on the dumping question.
Okay, the litter is a big problem. You see me on social media. I help out Faith. Becky, I helped you out by sending a crew down to your place. Yeah, litter is a big problem in Penn Hills. But we have a plan. And I talked to the manager about this morning. I'm going to just bear with me. We have a vacant property recovery system that was just adopted. The plan is a way of tracking vacant homes and their ownership. Okay? In the case of repairs needed or grass cutting, now we have a list of who owns them. The plan has brought $25,000 back into the municipality for a month of March and is on its way to bring that same amount for April. And I just discussed with the manager today the funds generated by this program to be used for cameras to catch violators and littering and dumping. Also, in the next meeting, we will be raising the fines for littering and dumping. The new signs will be erected and reflect the maximum fine with a message, "This area is being monitored for illegal activity." So that's on our agenda, and that's going to be taken care of. And we're still going to go out and get the pit students. I'll still go out and get them, and we'll clean up whatever we can. And the dumping of tires is a giant travesty in Penn Hills. We have a definite problem, but it's not only plaguing us, it's plaguing other communities. I meet once a month with different mayors throughout the communities, and we're all brainstorming on how we can fix this. We also came across, maybe we should buy a tire shredder and shred these tires ourselves, because we're paying $6 a tire to get rid of them. Maybe if we shredded them, okay, we could possibly sell the shredded tires back into the community and generate some money that way. And this would be owned by everybody that's involved with it. So we're working on the tires, we're working on the illegal dumping. There is cameras coming, so we've got it on our way.
So again, your psychic abilities are commendable. I did want to ask about sometimes state or federally funded cameras to monitor these situations. There are grants available that other communities have tapped that I'm familiar with. So I just wanted to let Pauline have just maybe 30 seconds to sort of catch up with you, since you went a little farther on the dumping, and then we'll let it end even there. Thank you.
With all due respect, I mean, John, you say, you're on Facebook. We can see you doing that. We see a lot of you on Facebook. But honestly, I mean, you've had 2 years to do all this, so we have things like 90...
Pauline, try to address the dumping issue, if you would. Thank you.
Well, I think the dumping issue isn't something that just happened like a month before the election. So we've had dumping for 2 years. We've had 2 years to deal with the dumping issue, and we're just on the eve of the election dealing with the dumping issue. It's too little, too late.
All right. Howard has a question that is somewhat related.
As you know, I have many years' experience as a code enforcement director. And as a planning director, I've been to dozens of meetings where we brainstorm, we put a blackboard up, and we got the chalk and the problems and the good and the bad. One of the top problems is always code enforcement. I think you probably know that if you're going around talking to people. My question is related to police officers, and firemen, and code enforcement. Many years ago, the police department, for example, used to handle junk cars on private property. They don't do that anymore. I think you know, perhaps the public doesn't know, that code enforcement is overwhelmed. Some communities are trying to be somewhat progressive in terms of getting their volunteer firemen and their police officers more involved in code enforcement. And that doesn't mean the police officer driving by a house that has peeling paint and giving the address to code enforcement. It means taking on a more active role. Same with volunteer firemen. That might be more difficult for us in Penn Hills in terms of volunteer firemen, because it seems to work better in communities that have full-time firemen. But nonetheless, our firemen go, they put out fires, they see people living in lots of different types of situations, some that are unhealthy. My question is, do you see opportunity for a partnership between code enforcement with our volunteer fire departments and our police department?
Oh, I'm sorry. That would be, who's keeping track better than I am? John? Yeah, thank you.
Well, first let me tell you that code is being restructured by the new manager as we speak. Code's future will be proactive instead of reactive. The way the complaints are taken to the way the violations are handled. These door hangers will be something new this year, and I showed them at a meeting where you're going to have the code officer go out and he'll hang this on the door, and if there's a violation of grass, for example, the $25 will be paid at the municipal building, and 100% of that fine goes to the municipal, so they'll be generating some revenue out of it. The issues have already been addressed about the rental properties, and there are certain steps being taken, starting the occupancy permits, the rental inspections, and we haven't had vacant property recovery. Do I see a partnership with the Penn Hills Police Department? No, and I'm going to tell you why. Because after we got rid of our own personal dispatch, and we went to 911, the calls come in unfiltered. When I say they're unfiltered, that means that Phil Pusiterio was on the desk at one time. Phil would filter the calls out. So if there was a barking dog, there was a neighbor's complaint, and he needed to go up to the magistrate and file a civil complaint, he would filter that for you. Now, our officers, which we have 50 at this present time, and 3 more to be hired, which is the maximum capacity of police officers for the tax base that's coming in. We cannot support any more. These officers are running from the time they get here to the time they go home. And guarantee, I worked when Croshaw was killed, I worked the funeral, and I worked in Penn Hills, and I ran from 8 o'clock in the morning till 4:30 at night without a break. It's unbelievable the amount of calls you get in Penn Hills. Now, as far as the firemen, I don't think we have enough firemen to do that. But we do have another option. The Tri-Valley Cog system right now is offering their services in dealing with code. We're going to attend a meeting, and I don't know how it's going to work exactly, but if we can get involved with the Tri-Valley Cog on this program too, we'll have them assist with the code and see what their ideas are.
Thank you, John. Paulene?
I mean, once again, you know, on the eve of the election, we've got these door knockers. We've had these issues for 2 years. We've had the opportunity. To me, that smacks of political aggrandizing. But I agree, police officers need to be police officers, firefighters need to be firefighters, and code enforcement officers need to be code enforcement officers. They're certainly overwhelmed, but the answer isn't taking other services and mixing them.
Thank you. I was interrupted slightly. That's the entirety of your answer? We're good? Okay. Thank you so much. The next question is, again, an amalgam of many questions we have. Most of the people who wanted to talk about this topic actually did not think that crime levels in Penn Hills were inordinately high. Some seemed alarmed by trends here, but I was surprised that most people did not think they were high. The thing that bothered most people was the perception that Penn Hills seems to suffer from in the media, and really amongst its own. It seems that we eat our own on some of these issues with a bit of negativity. Would you both take a second to comment on the perception of crime, the reality of crime, and any other issues of safety or policing or community policing that you would like to touch on? I would give you a little more time on this one, okay? Paulene, you will go first.
Yeah, so absolutely. I think the biggest problem in Penn Hills is a public relations problem. You know, as I said earlier, there's no crime in Pittsburgh. It's never reported that, oh, someone was shot in Pittsburgh. Someone was shot in a specific neighborhood. I'm sorry. Oh, I thought you were wanting me to.
I didn't hear anything.
I thought you were paying
Continue.
attention.
No, it wasn't me.
Okay. But again, you know, so part of it is a public relations problem, but we are our own worst enemies at times. We've got a website, we've got a site out there called something like Positive Folks for Penn Hills Folks or whatever. It's probably the most there is. It's so negative that the one who has it out there, he won't even put his face and name on there. You know, and things like that, I think that we as a community have to boycott those sorts of sites. They put the word positive in there, but it's anything but positive. If it was so positive and so good, you need to put your name out there, but you won't. And so we need to, number one, always counter these. We need to boycott those sites. We need to counter negativity with positivity. And then I think we need to say, look, if we have the funds or the means or whatever, and the person that we have who's doing our public relations, if this isn't successful, we need to move on. We need to stop talking and act. Penn Hills is awesome, and we need to get the word out there. And it's got to be done properly, and it's got to be done with, if the person who's doing it isn't the right one for it, and we all need to individually, I want to have that neighborhood war, as I said before, because we really are awesome, and we are our own worst enemy.
Thank you, Pauline. John?
I think the perception on the public media of Dylan Carr and some of the news stories that we have, yeah, it's given Penn Hills a bad name. But the amount of crime that we have, I see the reports, is not that bad. We have our isolated incidents, but we have some of the best police officers that money can buy. These guys are on their toes. They're working day and night for us, sometimes double shifts. I mean, these guys are on top of their game. They're protecting and serving the community the way they should be. But we definitely need, now I talked about this PR person, and we just hired her, okay? So we just don't know how she's going to work out here. She was at the first meeting, I believe, or the last meeting, I believe. She might have come in late. But as long as we can get this positive vibe out and start bringing people back into the community and telling people there's a lot of nice things. I mean, Summerfest, we have a wonderful Summerfest, and we have the Easter egg hunt. There's a lot of good things. There's a lot of good people in Penn Hills. These few isolated incidents, and that's what everybody looks at. Everybody looks at the bad. There's plenty of good in Penn Hills. There's plenty of organizations in Penn Hills that are good. I mean, we can't just focus on the negative. We have to look at the positive, but nobody ever brings out the positive. I said to Dylan Carr, why don't you come down to the Easter egg hunt? I never got a call back. I said to him, why don't you come over here? Never get a call back. So that's what I'm saying. I think the Trib, the Dylan Carr situation, is one of our biggest factors. He sells newspaper on the bad publicity that he gives Penn Hills. And like I said, it's an isolated incident on most of these counts. It's not as bad as other parts of the community. And I think Penn Hills, for the most part, is pretty safe. And I'm proud to be a resident here.
Thank you, John. I'm going to ask Jim Beck to approach the microphone again. He has a question.
Thank you. Different direction. With the understanding that race-related issues prove challenging in every town, how would you rate Penn Hills on the issue of race relations? Would you say we're ahead of the curve? Would you say we're somewhere in the middle? Or would you say we have miles to go? If you believe we have miles to go, how would you improve on the issue?
That would be you, John.
Well, it's funny you just said this, because I got a big issue right now going on. Big issue. We drew a line in the sand in the past, and we cut that line off at the hippos down on Brown Road. There's 700 homes in the East Hills, Lincoln Park area, Eastwood area, and I'm appalled at what the municipality has done for those people. They've cut them off from everything. You go up there, they don't know we have a new municipal building, they don't know who the mayor is. Anytime anybody knows about them is when the politicians go up there and ask them for their votes. They have no way of knowing what's going on. The dumping is horrendous up there. Horrendous. They dump in the middle of Mark Drive. Where did you ever hear of somebody dumping in the middle of Mark Drive? My grandfather was up there on Dolman Road, and he developed that property up there. And if my grandfather was alive, he'd be rolling over right now looking at that property up there. That is ridiculous what we did. That has to be changed. There has to be something done. Those people pay taxes just like everybody in this room do. They are no different than the rest of us. And that will change under my administration. I'll guarantee it.
Thank you. Paulene?
I graduated from Penn State in 1985, and back then I was a resident assistant, and we had to go to what was a brand new thing back then. Penn State was the first, if not the first, certainly one of the first to do diversity training. And one of the things that we learned is the truth is if you sit down and have a conversation with someone, most folks are pretty much, we're all pretty much the same. We're all pretty much on an even keel. The problem that happens, Penn Hills, again, is one of the we are the largest municipality outside the city of Pittsburgh. We need to start to see what our identity is. We need to recognize that we have a great opportunity here for diversity. A lot of people here, a lot of young people tell me that they moved to Penn Hills specifically for our diversity. It's not just race relations, it's all sorts of, we are a diverse community. I see some people shaking, nodding in agreement. Absolutely, you hear some young people and they tell me that, we're similar to other communities in the sense that, look, we have problems like everybody else. But one of the cool things about us is we are among one of the most diverse communities, and I think it's Penn Hills, McKeesport, and I can't think of the third one right now, where we have, a higher population of diversity than in other communities. I also would work with other communities, and that's the thing. I mean, we always want to keep everything right here in Penn Hills. We have to branch out, and I'm happy to go to the other mayors that I know personally, and I think we have a long way to go, but I think we are the folks that are ready to go. And again, here I'm hearing this. It's too late. We're on the eve of election, and we're talking about all these things that are going to happen. It's a lot of talk and a little too, not much action.
All right, thank you. Yeah, please, let's have a round of applause we're getting into another area of the debate. I was asked to know, I'm not sure I completely understand it, but I am aware of an animal rights group. Is this what I'm referring to? Can we pass this note? A positive change. I think that we just want to make a clarification that any site that you were citing was not this animal rights group. Is that what we're trying to do here?
Mr. Rambo, what is your site called?
Is that clear? Ma'am, is that clear to you? Okay, all right, we'll move on. We're going to move on to the next question. I'd like to ask Betty Wade to come to the podium. Thank you.
One way to do it.
Hi, I'm Betty Wade, and I've been an Ohio transplant, but I've been here over 25 years. When I first came here, I moved to Penn Hills, and one of the things I was really amazed at is that the main corridor through the town, Rhode Island Road, to me was ridiculous. Now we're talking over 25 years. Now I know this takes long-term vision as far as getting Rhode Island Road, even if you have a middle turning lane, would make a huge difference. You talk about economic development in the shopping center and the other areas. I can't see a major player coming in because of the way Rhode Island Road. It's a logjam.
Yep.
So I think, what do you have for a long-term vision? Now, I realize it's a state road, but we talked about reaching out to state and federal funds, and I know it's not something that's going to be an instant fix, but I would like whoever moves here now, 25 years from now, not to have to ask the same question.
Isn't that for John? Thank you.
There's been a lot of talk about that. Yeah, we do have to. We do have to have a plan to come up with that. And the plan I heard not too long ago was about removing some of the houses on the left-hand side, making the street wider. That was a plan. More sidewalks. That was a plan. Everybody's in past administrations has come up with different plans for Rhode Island Road, and it's never been implemented. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I guess the state doesn't want to come in and help Penn Hills. That's basically it. I know we have to make it, but that's kind of tough because I just had a meeting with 3 of them about the sewage, okay? And I asked them to come in and please give us some money to pay down to $64 million. And you know what they told me? I had a meeting with a gentleman named DJ Ryan from Congressman Lamb's office and Jay Costa. And you know what they said? They said, there is no money to pay down your debt. We can give you grant money to do your work, which we're already doing. We're getting grant money from them. But in not so many words, they said, hey, look, there's a lot of other communities in Penn Hills. We just gave you $3 million for your road paving, and we gave you $418 for your sewage. You see what I'm saying? So to take on a project like that, I mean, it's tough. And as far as grants are concerned, we have a grant writer now that we hired. And the grant writer just said, I looked into a couple of things for you today, so it looks like at the moment that any state funding for sewage work is all on loan basis. We have never taken a loan out to fix our repairs that we are doing right now. So that's not a good deal either. So, I mean, if my opponent can call the governor up and have him make that street wide, God bless her. God bless her. I mean, she's got Fitzgerald's number. Maybe she has got the governor's number on her phone too. Order. Pardon me, ma'am? The past administrations, the way I'm hearing it, and Howard probably could even enlighten us on, there's been plans to do all kind of stuff down there, but the federal money is never coming through. The state money's never coming through.
Thank you, John. Pauline, your take on this?
So I know I sound like a broken record, but this is the reality of it. John started out by saying, yeah, we have to think of a plan. But John, you've had 2 years to at least get something going. That's what's, well, it's on film right now. At any rate, you said God bless her. Yes, I would take God's blessing, but in addition to that, I think I'll take your vote because we need to move forward on this. And Betty, you're correct. It's got to be a big, bold vision. We need to do things now that's going to take us into the future. Whoever thought that they would take the site of a steel mill and turn it into the south side, or waterfront? Whoever thought that tiny little Butler Street could turn into what it's turned into? We need to have a vision. What happens here is we say, oh well, you know, they never opened up Rhode Island Road, so that's it, we're just stuck. Well, thank goodness it's a state road because we can look at the state and say, you need to come in here and you're in the middle of our community and we need you to help. And yes, absolutely, you go and you say, we thank you for the grant, we thank you for the next one, and this is just the beginning. We're ready to bust this wide open.
Very well, thank you. All right, we have now reached the portion of the evening where the questions are for the candidate in particular. They're not the most comfortable questions, but these are some of the most popular questions that were submitted to us. So we're just going to ask two, and they'll be addressed to the candidate. And I'll start with Pauline. The question is, what were your accomplishments while on school board?
I'm sorry.
Probably the biggest the thing that I'm most proud of is the school board was on the brink of giving away to the municipality Penn Hebron School. It was maybe for $1 or something like that. They wanted to do something, and I said absolutely not. I spearheaded the effort to get $250,000 for that building. There's no buyer for that building. We couldn't give it away, and I'm very proud that I got the $250,000. I spearheaded the effort to get $250,000 for that. Beyond that, the next thing is that when the first year that I got in, I said, look, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and get into this swamp. And you get in there, and you notice that there's very, very little discretion with that budget. It's like your household budget. You can't do much, right? You have fixed expenses. There's like less than 10% discretion. But I discovered that what you do is you have professionals, highly paid professionals that are in those rules, just like the municipality. What you're supposed to do is let those professionals do their jobs. You don't go in and micromanage. You're not supposed to go into the classroom and tell a teacher how to teach. On the municipality side, you're not supposed to go onto the road and measure roads with them. And we went in there and we took a look at everything, and you're only as good as the information you're given. And then as we moved forward, we got one day where we discovered there was no money in the bank. Could barely make payroll. I'm very proud to say that what I did was, at that point, I had no ability to do much. The money was already dealt with. When we closed that door, I think that I was the voice of reason. At that table, I think I brought calm. I think I used my leadership skills, and I think that the best that we could do was done at that point under the circumstances, because by the time that board that I was on, as someone once said, the horse was out of the barn, the doors were closed, and it was way down the road.
All right, thank you. John, somebody thinks that your campaign style is rather gruff. Is it a reflection of your leadership style?
I don't think my campaign is rather gruff. When you say gruff,
You have the microphone. That actually wasn't the word that was used. I softened it up a little.
You softened it up. No, my campaign isn't gruff. I don't believe it.
The word was negative.
So, in what aspect has it been?
I don't know.
I think I'm running a pretty.
But you have the opportunity
to
convince us otherwise.
Well, I don't know what negativity you're talking about. We haven't put any negativity out in my campaign.
Okay.
What people believe in the heart and souls of the municipality of Penn Hills, I have no idea what they're saying out there. I just go door to door, I knock, I introduce myself, and basically that's it. I mean, our campaign slogans are I win, you win. Where's the negativity out on
All
this?
right, very well. Now, another one for you, Pauline. So you are the endorsed candidate. Party politics, the machine, the same old, same old. Dissuade us from that thought.
First of all, let me say, I don't find these questions prickly at all. I welcome them. So what happens is there are two parties, essentially, and we have more parties than that. What happens is in the Democratic Party, we have 50 wards, right? So you have two committee persons. They are elected by you and your neighbors. And then what happens is, once you elect that person, you go to that committee person, you say, hey, here are my thoughts, here are the issues that are important to me. And then there's a meeting, and at that meeting, each candidate has to get up and persuade the people that you have elected to say, endorse me. So what happened is I went before the committee, and they chose me as the endorsed candidate. You can use these terms, but if you use these terms, that quite honestly, that shows a lack of understanding of how the process works. It's for organization, party organization, because we couldn't have each individual parties. So as the endorsed candidate, that means that I absolutely have access to state, county, and federal officials. That's how I do have access. So yes, John, I actually can get a conversation, a face-to-face conversation with the governor, with the county executive, with Senator Costa, with Congressman Lamb. They absolutely will hear me, which is really cool, because even though you're constituents, and even though you would love to meet with them, if you pick up the phone and call them, you're probably going to get an A, which is fine. But I will have the opportunity. It's not that I'm more important than you. It's just that I am recognized as the endorsed candidate, and so they will hear me.
All right, thank you. John, your last question in this vein is, if elected mayor under the Home Rule Charter, you will be able to pick your successor on the council. Have you made that decision, and can you tell us who that might be?
No, I haven't at this present time, but I want to say something.
Sure.
Just about what Pauline just said. 2015, I was the endorsed candidate for the magisterial district judge. I was endorsed by the Allegheny County Democrats. I went into the Penn Hills Democrats, and even though I was endorsed by the Democrats of Allegheny County, I wasn't endorsed by the Democrats in Penn Hills. So that says something for the type of politics that we're dealing with. Okay? I spent that $1,500. I stood in that line downtown and got endorsed by the Allegheny County Democrats. Penn Hills wouldn't do it. So yeah, I did go up there and I asked them for their endorsement, and they told me, no, we can't do that. So they went against their own party, the Allegheny County Democrats. And the reason why she's got that, she's vice chairman of that Democratic Party. That tells the whole story.
I'm going to let Pauline make a comment here. We won't let it go on too long. I just want you to end on equal terms before you give your closing statements.
I appreciate that.
Briefly, thank you, Pauline.
I am very, very proud to be vice chair, and I am also, I'd like to think that the reason I was endorsed is because they like my vision for Penn Hills. I think that it speaks volumes that your own township, your own municipality won't endorse you. Maybe they, not maybe, but as a matter of fact, the fact that you went before your own neighbors and no one person controls the entire, these are your neighbors, these are people. You had the opportunity to speak, and if they chose not to endorse you, there's a reason why your own community didn't endorse you.
Thank you very much.
No, the reason why I wasn't DeLuca.
Okay. I would very much like to host that debate someday. I would love to be your state representative. All right, so I'm going to let the candidates close with a couple minutes to summarize. I appreciate your patience with this portion of the evening.
Okay,
Again, we didn't want it to get too
Oh,
quickly,
yeah.
but I think the heat's come up just a bit. And I think it's okay as long as they're both comfortable. I would like, Pauline, would you close, please?
I was about 7 or 8 years old. I don't really remember. For $1 million, I can't tell you, but I think it was around the 4th of July because I had one of those little snakes that you would set on fire, and I was on the sidewalk putting that on fire. I went in the house to get some more, and there was a knock at the door. It's kind of odd because it was early in the morning. My mother went to the door, and my aunt was there. My aunt hadn't spoken to my mother in years. My mother was a nurse, and my aunt had discovered that there was a lump on her breast. And my mother told my aunt she had to get that checked out. And when she did, she had breast cancer. And back then, they did radical mastectomies. That means they would go all the way from your bicep, all the way across. My aunt blamed my mother for being what she called maimed. She didn't speak to her for years. And that day when my mother went to open the door, my aunt said, "I'm sorry I didn't call you, but I figured you would have every right to hang up on me." She said, "I'm so sorry." She said, "I blamed you all those years, but you saved my life." Here's the reality, folks. This is truth right now. Okay, we're at a fork in the road. This isn't some sporting event or something between me and John. Penn Hills is seriously at a fork in the road right now. You can stay with what we have. John's on council and he's doing the best he can, and I don't fault him for that. I just keep hearing a lot of we have to, but not a lot of action in the past 2 years. Or we can turn this car around. It's time to turn this around. This is so exciting. This is the best time in history to be in Penn Hills, in my opinion. You come up Butler Street, there's Allegheny River Boulevard. We need to open that up. We need to take that rail from New Kensington all the way downtown. We need to get on the river, and we need to have people come. There are islands out there. People need to get on a boat and come out here. Come with us. We have the opportunity to do so much here. We have to stop saying, well, we need a plan. We have to stop keeping things in our little kingdom here. I'm ready, willing, and able to. I've got a bold vision. Won't you come with me? Let's go forward. We need county, state, federal. We need everybody to come in here. This can't stay here. There's a clear difference between John and me. John has a nice vision here locally for Penn Hills and everything staying in Penn Hills. But we've got to get bigger, bolder. We've got to go further. If you like John's situation, by all means vote for him. If you want to go into the future with me, bold, shout from the rooftops.
Thank you. Equal time for John. Will you please conclude? Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank the Garden Club for sponsoring this and thank all of you for coming. I was born and raised in Penn Hills, graduated from Penn Hills, met my wonderful wife, and got married in Penn Hills. Bought properties in Penn Hills, staked my whole life in this community. Seen a prospering, vibrant community that a lot of you in this room don't remember. But you would have loved it. When I close my eyes, that is what I see and that is what I want again. That is what my goals are for this community. My record speaks for itself. Look at my achievements on the handout. You can see the pet registry, the initiative, the sewer, the proposed senior discount, cell phone policies, nepotism policies. There's much more work to be done. And behind the scenes, I'm always working on something for the betterment of the community. I spend a lot of time with the manager every day, either questioning spending or trying to solve problems for Penn Hills. This is what a mayor and council should do. And this is what I intend to do always. No longer can we afford to have council members as just figureheads doing this for prestige. We need people who will roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty. As mayor, I will always get my hands dirty and be out there working for the community. I've been on council now for a year and a half, made great strides. Please help me do this as your mayor. Vote for me on May 21st. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Again, I'd like to end the first part of the evening by thanking every one of you for coming and being such a lovely audience. I hope we got some information out, and I hope you'll tell other people what you experienced this evening.
All right.
And we're going to set up for the council candidates.
Thank you, everyone.
Stick
We'll be
around.
back for council members as well. No, don't put me on camera.